Desk with me now, though, to unpack Dawn's first half numbers as Company Chief Executive Derek Tod. Good to have you as always, sir.
Thank you.
I must say it was interesting reading through your company results because my producer Michael as well was alarmed to note that you've actually kept record of the number of power outages that you've experienced from Eskom.
Yeah, quite right. It was about 37.
That's a huge number.
In the final 2 months of the year. I think if one looks at the power and what actually happened, we had the NUMSA strikes in July with secondary effects in August, but most factories were affected, so you didn't have big power consumption. And then we went into August, September, and we saw our company platform numbers hit exactly where we thought they would hit. And then, you know, because everybody was now trying to recover in the manufacturing base, we believe that that put a lot of pressure on the grid, and we went into the load shedding process.
Okay.
So that seems to be how this whole thing has played out.
As an executive, though, and you were just commenting about the market performance right now, about to touch 53,000 points, but there's a lot of negative sentiment, especially from a local perspective. How do you make sure you don't lose any sleep at night?
Well, I think being a chief executive in this country is difficult in most cases at the moment, but I mean, that's what we're paid for. I think the fundamental of it is to try and read the picture. We've certainly agreed with Labour that we've now got a 3-year agreement, of which we're now 6 months into it. So we believe we hopefully have removed that as a question over the next or the period ahead. The other thing that we're doing, we've decided we're going to put in uninterrupted power supplies. So each of our 10 factories that we've got up here in Gauteng and those on the coastal region, we're going to put in generators with in order to make sure that we don't have any interruption to our supply. It is, if you take July, the companies that extrude all our piping did not operate at all. So all you've got is the cost. And in fact, Dawn, in turnover for that period, the total loss in turnover to us was 277 million.
Compared to previous periods?
Absolutely. It was a big, about 10% of the numbers for the half year were taken out because of, firstly, strikes and obviously the impacts of the load shedding.
So you're putting the necessary measures in place, but at
Yes.
what cost does this come at?
We've gone through, we obviously had generators in our plants before, just to you know, certain manufacturing processes, you've got to stage the plant down in order to make sure that you don't have material stuck in them when they cool off. So we put in generators when we had problems like some years back. But now you've got to be freestanding. You've actually got to put in the power requirement of the total installation. And that is what we're going to do now. Now, you know, to have a power outage for a few hours is one thing, but to be out of power for a good few hours.
Over several days.
Absolutely. Destroys all your shift work, destroys everything that you've got put together. Very difficult process. We found in the Western Cape, the forecasting of when the power dips or load shedding are going to take place, they are pretty accurate. However, up here in Gauteng, they're not accurate at all. So you actually get caught in a corner most of the time.
What does this mean then from a Labour perspective? You mentioned the shifts being impacted. Are you looking at restructuring in such a manner where jobs need to be cut back, operational efficiencies need to be reviewed? Well,
the sad thing is that we have got an abundance of orders. You know, most of our plants and companies have got good orders, good government orders now, a lot of which were postponed in the final part of the year.
We'll touch on that in a moment.
Absolutely. And those have, in many cases, been released now. So it's all now how that timetable works out and how we can dance our way around that process to make sure we get the maximum production, you know, out of the plants.
Coming back to the government work, it is obviously causing a headache yet again, but those postponements, have those lapsed now and things are back in order?
Things are back in order. The final quarter of last year, there was definitely a reduction. We had a lot of awarded contracts that were postponed into this new year. And you know, with the municipal elections taking place next year in 2016, obviously with the service delivery issues that are taking place and the protests around that particular area, we believe that government will spend a fair amount in water and sanitation, which is the main area that we focus in, certainly on our infrastructure side of our business.
Tell us about infrastructure and building, because that was a sector at least that is picking up, despite what we're actually hearing from the big construction players in SA.
I think, you know, construction is the big guys who build civil roads. We refer to them in our organization as the concrete guys. Okay, the big structural guys. We are actually, from a building and from an infrastructure point of view, water and sanitation, of which is a vast need in this country. And in Africa, we've got plants in Africa, we've got trading operations in Africa. So, you know, the whole continent is in need of infrastructure. That is why the strategy was to go in that direction. Then from the building side, we've historically always been in the building side. And we've recently done a big transaction with Grohe from Germany.
Yes.
And they are now part of a big Japanese corporate called Lixil. Enormous organization. But the way they've structured the business, the part that we fall under is a $5.8 billion supply chain. And part of the structure that we've put together is to export product and create jobs in this country into their supply chain in various areas of the world, because we have some unique designs and specifications in our companies in South Africa.
Your acquisitions in the past have managed to pay off, as well as the partnerships, as you mentioned, with Grohe. Going forward, when can investors gain some kind of confidence? Looking at your share price here to date, it's down by 28%. As you mentioned, it is a tough environment locally. Is the diversification strategy going to pay off, and when?
Well, I think firstly, we want to also go into that diversification strategy on the infrastructure side. So we essentially will be 49% owners in manufacturing, with global partners with technical processes and the R&D and the engineering, which South African companies battle to afford. We can't afford that type of process. So that's the strategy, and it's been our strategy for the last 8 years. We nearly concluded a number of times, and then the crisis hit us, so those ones fell away. But certainly that's the direction that we are a large trading house. We do currently about 22% of our activity in Africa. We've agreed a very defined line with Grohe, and we also have the rights to the Grohe branding in Africa. So, we've really gone for an alternative strategy in getting involved in Africa, and 22% of our revenue currently is done in Africa.
Exactly. We certainly wish you all the best and hope that maybe investors will also follow you on this journey that you're about to begin. Good to have you with us today. Thanks to Dawn Chief Executive Derek Tod.